Right. With that, we'll move on to the last part of this session, which is that plenary discussion. So we had some fantastic pre-recorded talks from Ahmed and Nicholas, one on using agent-based modeling for looking at the economic impacts of antimicrobial resistance policies, and the one from Nicholas on disease transmission with multi-host transfer networks. Would anyone like to kick off with some questions?
Maybe what we can propose to both of you, I don't know if you prepared something, but just in very short amount of time, so 1 minute, something like that, just to give to the audience a very a summary of the main of the take-home message, so that it reminds everyone of the content, because we look at the talks, but maybe a few days ago, so that we can remind that. If you have no slides, you can just say it in 1 sentence or 2 sentences.
Okay. Should I start?
Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Ahmed Fashiou. I'm a junior lecturer at the National Veterinary School of Toulouse. And the work we were presenting was the work carried out at the request of the Ministry of the Agriculture. And we have developed a model, which is a simulation, but bioeconomic and agent-based model, in order to evaluate the economic impact of the eco-antibio policy on reducing antimicrobial usage on farm, but typically evaluating the impact of this policy on the whole value chain. So we had high hopes, like always in life. So we have to we wanted first to represent all the agents and all the main actors of the value chain, and then we have focused our efforts on modeling the breeders and the farmers, the pork producers, and we tried to put some effort and to stress the point that the effects of the policy were not really visible on farmers' revenues, and this was the main result. So, result of the model had shown very few economic effects at the producer level, and these results were also agreed with the main findings of the survey carried out among farmers.
Yeah, my time, right? Well, my study was on this explanation among several species. The main motivation is because in Brazil, that is the area studied, usually they want to look just one single species in order to make surveillance and make control actions among this area. So the purpose of this model was test the hypothesis about the one single species can infect other species through the animal movements. This is the main goal for this. And also we make a descriptive analysis for the network in a single view, and also considering the full network in order to show how important it is to see the overall of the full network, considering the whole species, the importance in the veterinary area for this. With this information, we develop an stochastic models, susceptible infected model, in order to test or quantify the probability of infection for one species to others. So we seed infections in one single species, and then run the model in order to see if there are infected farms in other species. And also we use this model in order to test control actions based on network metrics like degree, between, space rank, that there are very typical social network metrics to target farms in the network. So that's it.
Well, if I might start, I have a question that maybe, Elisa, you can start.
Oh yeah, it's up to you. Thank you both for this summary, and I would start with a question for Ahmed. Thank you for your study, which is quite a bit different from the others. It's a new this kind of studies on bioeconomic questions are also very important. So I had a question. I don't know, it's a methodological one or more or less. You in your presentation, the results are given as, I mean, I don't exactly have in mind, but they're numbers of, I don't know, costs or things like this. And I was wondering which could be the sensitivity or the impact of your assumptions on these outcomes or the model outputs, in terms of, are you able or to provide also confidence intervals or to test somehow the sensitivity of your model to parameters, to assumptions, to things like this?
Okay. Thanks for this question, which is pretty relevant and which is really relevant at this stage of development of the model. So we have considered that our three scenarios is a kind of a sensitivity analysis, and since it's a simulation model and since it is also deterministic simulations. So we try to put a lot of efforts on defining the calibration matrix for the whole model, and we validated the model on three key parameters. So we try to validate the main outcomes on the economic profitability and also to the technical results. And for both of them, we compared our results to the IFIP documents. First on the technical management of Hertz and the technico-economic management, which are frequently produced documents by the French Pork Production Institute, and also on the exposures of animals to different antimicrobial families. And our results were compared to the ANSES report between 2012 and 2016. So I agree that the result may not be shown in the presentation, but they will be integrated in the paper.
Okay, thank you. So you grounded as much as possible your model on data. So that's your, yeah. No, it was because, and I already stopped then. We have seen with the SARS-CoV-2 crisis, for instance, that for decision makers, it may be better to provide them with confidence intervals of things, and not with precise figures and quantities, because then they take them as for real, for true, and it's a bit dangerous to, the interpretations they're doing are sometimes not really the right ones, at least from our point of view of epidemiologists or modelers. So that's why it was a more general question.
So we get, I'm taking it as an advice, and we are gonna try to give a confidence interval, but we are planning to do it by changing the prices.
Okay, thanks.
I have also a question for you, and so I have a question for both, but I will start with you. I was wondering, because in what you present, the adaptive scenario was an in-between scenario with a regular change in the practice of farmers of the behavior. And I was wondering if there are other ways to account for a change of behavior, and that would be less maybe regular and maybe more based on, I don't know, information sharing or other economic criteria.
Okay, so about this, we didn't find any information about the behavioral changes or the most likely behavioral changes among pork producers in France, and what motivated us to represent the eco-antibio plan this way, the point that this policy or this plan was really based on spontaneous behavioral changes. So we tried to model the plan as a as a kind of a state of learning, which, depending on the receptive or the refractory nature of the farmers, they gonna be more likely to change their behaviors or not. And then we calibrated the change in practices as being two possible choices. So the first one is to avoid using the critical antimicrobials, and the second one is to have a more frequent recourse to vaccination. And these possible practices in the model are represented by the typology of droves of pigs, and the farmer agent can have a mixture of type of bands or type of pigs.
Okay, thank you. I have also a question for Nicholas, but maybe the audience have other questions for so that it's less confusing if we change because it's really two different.
I can wait, no problem.
And chime in with another question too. And so with this approach, what did you think was the biggest challenge with using this method, or what do you wish you had data for, or something that would make it easier for other people to use?
Okay, the big challenge with this kind of this kinds of methodological approach is like any modeling exercise, and particularly for simulation model, is putting a lot of effort to define the calibration matrix and the calibration data. So we have used a lot of sources. Among them, there are some technical reports from the French the Technical Institute for pork production, the production also of the Brittany pork market, and so on. And we have also used the cooperatives databases for prices and so on, and we have also based our data collection according to some expert sayings, and these experts were mainly veterinarians and technical advisors.
The challenge with most models, getting enough good data to back up your points. Yeah. Are there any last questions? All right, we'll open the floor to questions for Nicholas.
Okay.
I have a question.
Thanks.
Nicholas, I was wondering, when you assess the control scenarios by removing some nodes, the indicators you were using, they are calculated on which temporal windows for the network, and I guess it's past data, trade data, but I was not sure, and I was wondering if you have tested the influence of that on your predictions.
Okay, the time series of network was a static aggregation by month in order to see the fluctuation of the time or the temporality in the different network metrics over the period of time analysis. So yes, it depends. It depends on the species, and it depends on the year, because for instance, swine are more aggregated in the end of the year. So if you select that kind of period of time, sorry, at the end of the year, the swine network is going to be more reactive. You are going to get more infected farms because the behavior of this network is more higher than the others. On the other hand, usually for before the stops the foot-and-mouth disease vaccinations in cattle, we have a higher seasonality given for the vaccination when all the cattle is confined in order to vaccinate. So this impacts the network very high. Right now we are analyzing the new data because this year stops to vaccinate. So we are analyzing the data, but also we have the pandemic COVID. So this changed the nature of everything. So we don't know exactly how is the behavior of the network in this moment. And also we have the small ruminants that they have a seasonality with 2 peaks in the middle of the year and the end of the year. So basically, if it depends on this species, if you pick cattle, small ruminants, sorry, in the middle of the year and in the end of the year, you're gonna expect more infected farms. If you see the outbreak of you saw an outbreak in this time. And for peak, you will expect at the end of the year more infected farms.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yep.
I'll chime in with one that's more theoretical, maybe one to throw out to the rest of the audience too. And so since network analysis was introduced, I think over 20 years ago, it's hard to believe now, most papers have concluded something similar, that if you target those highly influential nodes, that's where you should be focusing your surveillance and vaccine efforts. But to the best of my knowledge, I haven't come across too many examples where people have actually applied that at a policy level and actually implemented that. Do you know if there are plans in Brazil that you sort of identified those influential nodes? Are they actually going to modify their vaccine or surveillance programs to target them? I appreciate that's a difficult question, and maybe throwing that out to the audience too, if anyone else has come across examples.
Yeah, fortunately for us, we have a good relationship with the official veterinary service. So in the beginning, they were start to implement control actions in random farms. So after we talk with the official veterinary service and say like, okay, if you target use network analysis to target that random farms by degree or by another, you can save money, save resources, and you're gonna get more impact. So this is like when the surveillance systems start to pay attention for us, like, okay, we can be more efficient with less money. So this is gonna be more easier to they are start to implement this. We are not, I don't have right now the specific information regarding with the transmission with a specific disease, but I am aware that right now the official veterinary service in this area in Brazil is implementing targeting farms based on degree. That is what's the best metric for the control disease. So we're expecting with the time, we're gonna be more studies in the future in order to see if it works or not, if we have the same impact or not, in order to test in the past to the mathematical models to see in the reality if this works or not. So we are expecting for this year in order to see what the data says about that.
Did you have baseline data to say how effective it was with the random approach compared to how effective it will be with the new targeted approach? Is there a way of doing a comparison between those to be able to understand if there are changes or differences between them?
Yeah, it's very hard to understand, but right now we are just expecting the data. We only have the information with the simulation. So yeah, this is an open question for us.
Elizabeth has a question.
Yeah, thank you. A quick question about the methodology. So as Caroline said, so network analysis we're using, we have been using for many years now, but I was wondering if when analyzing this multi-species data, you could apply completely, I mean, so usual network analysis, or there were some difficulties or some challenges, some particular things that were brought by this multi-species data and multi types of, and which are not seen in the data when analyzing only, let's say, cattle data or something, or just one, one category of trade.
Yeah, the main limitation for the network analysis using the large database is the computational resources.
Yeah, but this is true even if you have just only cattle or swine, or it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have a large database considered the whole species. So basically our main limitation was the computational analysis, specifically for the static networks. So we had the full aggregation of the network in just one big picture. So metrics like between it can take like days to calculate those analyses. So this is the main limitation in time for the computational process, but the whole analysis we can do it using a single view and the full network view very well. So it's the only limitation was time.
So what are your thoughts around using sort of the temporal chain? So where you do like a mini simulation, seeding it to see what the actual links are. So one of the main criticisms, obviously, the static network measures is it doesn't take into account sometimes the directionality as well as the temporal sequence of events. And I can't remember specifically from your presentations, apologies if I missed it, but did you also test the temporal chains, and did that make a difference to which farms you would have selected based on that?
Yeah, well, we selected a short period of time, just 1 month for the simulations. So we can see the behavior in more time than this. We are thinking more in exotic disease, so we are looking for transmission in other species in a short time. So we don't see more than 1 month in the results. The other question was this, sorry.
It was around, so with the static measures, you're missing those temporal sequences. So you wouldn't catch a farm that say if farm A sent a shipment to farm B on July 2nd, but the one from farm B to farm C occurred on June 30th. In a static network, that would be a transmission event from A to B to C.
Okay,
and
yeah.
so did including temporality change any of the inferences you made about which nodes were important in the network, particularly with the seasonal variations and how things are moved?
Yeah, that was the main motivation for create a susceptible infected model, because we can take account of the time respective parts in the network and the temporality in the network and see the evolution over time. So for this, we use a package CNIF that is very useful and very faster in order to test the control actions in the beginning. So we selected, I don't know if you see that in the presentation, we selected the first 2 years of the static network. We calculate these control actions. And then with the next 2 years, we simulate what happened if we target those farms based in the previous 2 years using data for the next 2 years in order to quantify the data that we have. Like we are targeting, we are ranking the farms in the past in order to see what's gonna be happening in the future. So that was what I used.
Thanks.